Joining us this evening. It is truly a privilege to welcome all of you to the launch event this evening of TP Renewable Microgrid Limited. My name is Ashwin Dayal. I am the Senior Vice President of the Rockefeller Foundation, and I lead our work on power and energy access. This is an incredibly special moment for many of us in this room. Not just the people on the stage. It is the culmination of a lot of hard work, a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error, a lot of risk-taking by many organizations, many companies, a lot of learning that has brought us to this moment. Today, we're delighted to have so many distinguished and committed leaders in the room to celebrate this moment, and to also continue to provide all of us with support in a sector that is still evolving and in which collaboration is going to be so key. The launch of TP Renewable Microgrid Limited has the potential to unleash the full capabilities of distributed energy, not just in the Indian market, which has its own particularities, but globally as well, where there's an exceptional amount of expectation around what distributed energy can do to break the stranglehold, to unlock the energy poverty challenge that so many millions, hundreds of millions of people are facing. So this evening, we're going to be honored to hear from a group of individuals and leaders who have been instrumental directly in making this effort come to the stage that it is today, or who more broadly have been showing leadership in really trying to drive home economic empowerment, and particularly the relationship between energy consumption and economic empowerment across India. Before we kick off with the proceedings, I just want to let everyone know that this event is being live streamed, so there's a global audience as well that is watching this. This is an event, of course, that's happening in India and a company that's being launched here. But as I mentioned a moment ago, it is an event of global interest because what's happening with distributed energy is a story that's covering countries across Asia. It's covering many, many markets in Africa. And I think this moment today is being noticed not just in India, but across the world. I also want to encourage all of you to join the conversation online. We have all sorts of different social media handles I'm sure that you use and you prefer. The hashtag Energy Empowers is one that we're using this evening. I encourage you all to do the same. So without any further ado, my great pleasure to invite up on the stage the CEO and Managing Director of Tata Power, Praveer Sinha. Praveer's passion, commitment and support for this effort from day one has really been a driving force in getting us to this point. Even prior to being the CEO of Tata Power, when he was heading up Tata Power DDL, he was involved in all sorts of different experimentations, thinking about how to unleash distributed energy, involved with test beds for batteries and microgrid labs, and doing all sorts of innovation on the ground to see if a moment could come where we could really bring this to reality. We had breakfast on October 6th, I believe it was, just over a year ago in New York, when I came face to face with the reality that he was actually extremely serious about the scale of ambition that Tata Power wished to put into distributed energy, and that has been a great inspiration for all of us. So without further ado, Praveer, love for you to come up on stage and address this group.
Thank you, Ashwin. Good evening. Mr. Upendra Tripathi, Dr. Rajiv Shah, senior officials from the government, dignitaries, partner organizations, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege for me to welcome all of you to the launch of Tata Power or TP Renewable Microgrid Limited. This is a big day for us because this is something that we have been working for last many years. And let me share with you some of the things that we did. This is not a standard microgrid that you see anywhere. It is not something which is a standard solar panel and storage and DG set. This is something very different, very unique. And I remember It was many years back that we got to meet with Professor Ignacio from MIT with 10, 12 of his students who came to our office, and he said that we have developed something known as the reference electrification model. I didn't understand what he was saying, and this is a REM tool that he has developed, and he has used satellite imagery to identify locations where, depending upon the access of energy, one can design a solar solution or a microgrid solution. They kept on coming back every 6 months, and I had to finally tell him that, tell me what is it that you want to do? And he said that this is a solution which, based on nearly 40,000 satellite imageries and doing a data analytics of that, they will be able to pinpoint exactly what is the exact electrification which is there in various parts of the country. And this he was doing not only for India, but was doing for a few other countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And we said we need to do validation of this because you have a tool which we do not know how true it is, whether a house is a house, whether a wire is a wire. And he said, yes, we will do the validation, but can we go and get information from the state utilities who have the details of where the lines are there? And he gave us a whole list of data that we need to collect it, which we collected from one of the state utilities. The data, whatever it was, when we started putting it on the map, we found that most of the poles and the transformers were in the middle of the river. And so that was the quality of data that we had. It took us a lot of time to do the data correction and cleaning up of the data. Eventually, we did this in 2 villages in Bihar, which were not electrified, and they never had electricity. They had never seen electricity. One was, and these were not very far off from the state capital. One was on the other side of the river. The only way to access that place was through boat. So when we wanted to take the solar panels, we waited for the monsoon to come, the river to get flooded, and then take it on the boat to the other side and install it. So huge amount of work that was done, and the whole objective was that we develop a tool which will be able to tell us what sort of electrification is required. And the tool is now known as OSM, Optimized Cost of Electrification Model. We are not only using it now for our microgrids that we are planning in India, but we also use in some other countries. I understand that they have already used it in Rwanda and Mozambique. So this is the first innovation and technology intervention that we did while developing this microgrid. So the road to microgrid was through many of these challenges, many of these innovations, many of these new solutions that we came up. The second thing that happened, and around the same time, a gentleman by name Sashi from ITT, he came to me and he said he's got funding from Tata Trust and Rockefeller Foundation. And he gave me a book and he says that this is what is the microgrid I will do. And I told him that what is the cost of this power? And the cost was very high. So to start with, and maybe to dissuade him a little bit, I told him, can you bring it down by 50%? And he said, are you mad? Yeah, where can I bring it down by? You tell me 10, 20% I will bring down, but definitely not. And let me tell you that over a period of time, we have brought down more than 50%. So that's what it is. We looked at how do we bring down the cost of the solar, of the total microgrid. Utility in a box was a solution that was thought of, how we can have lower footprint of the solar system and the storage and the DG set or the biomass. And the whole thing was done in such a way whereby we can bring down the cost. If the capital cost comes down, then it becomes affordable. We cannot have villagers paying at 25 rupees or 30 rupees a unit, which the typical microgrids were charging over there. So we said that we need to bring down. But as we went into this, we found that everything is an issue over there. The standard batteries that were there, of course, the lithium-ion batteries are always very good, but it is prohibitively expensive. So what is the type of battery that we should have? Is it the sodium sulfate battery or the lead acid battery or the advanced lead acid? So we put up a test bed, and Hasna sent some of our engineers from Bangladesh to come and do the testing over here. The ambient conditions, 45 degree to 47 degree, is a challenge because the life of the battery goes down as soon as the temperature goes above 40 degrees. So we carried out a lot of tests under different conditions, charging, discharging, ambient conditions, and we finally came to a solution that this is the most cost-effective solution in terms of the life of the battery and in terms of its capability in giving the solution. So this was another area that we worked very closely with ITT, and then came the challenge that the DG set is still there. How do we get out of the DG set? We continue to have the challenge. Our whole purpose is that we need to do renewable energy. We need to move away from diesel that is being used. So we looked at biomass. Mr. Tata gave us some references of German companies who have developed biomasses, which does not require briquetting, which does not require making of pellets, and it is environmentally friendly. So we developed some of those technologies. We installed over here, did the POCs, and today we have a solution which again is going through some rounds of tests so that it should have the capability to use any biomass and able to produce energy. So hopefully that will be the next solution that we would be coming. But while we were doing all this, we also realized that if the consumer has to pay a certain amount of money, and our target was that we will always give them supply of power at a cost which is lower than what the normal DISCOMs charge. The government has programs under Bhagya Jyoti, Kutir Jyoti. Can we give them a tariff which is lower than that? So how do you handle that? So we looked at that, what is the demand side management that we can do. Of course, by that time, the technology of LED bulbs had come, and 7 watt and 9 watt. But can we now give them other equipments, household equipments, which can be lower cost? So we looked at some of the technologies, and we came with high efficiency fans. The normal fans are 80 watt consumption. The high efficiency in India is 50 watt. We got fans which are 20 watt. So that makes it a game changer in terms of usage. They can use for 10 hours and still have 200 watt hour of consumption. The rewound fans over there consume 200 watts per hour. So that is the difference, 1:10 difference. Then we said that this is what is the consumption for the household. But then the consumption in the household is very, very little. It's minuscule. It's about 8 to 9 units because they don't have the air conditioning and other requirements that one is looking at. So it was very important that if we have to make it commercially viable, we need to get someone who can have more larger load or larger demand of electricity. And we got in touch with SPI, which is an offshoot of, or is held by Rockefeller Foundation, where they had created business models where they support micro enterprises. And when we talk of micro enterprises, it can be anything. It can be from the atta chakki, the flour mill, to the rice huller, to the oil expeller, to the milk chiller, or even for that matter, irrigation pump sets, whereby the farmer can sell water within a certain geographic area. So many of these solutions that they talked about, we said, can we now increase the load and thereby bring the economics whereby people are still able to use energy and can afford that? Many of these solutions have been tried out, and in fact, SPI has done it in 200 villages, and these are now being tried by us. And the purpose was that we are not only going to supply them electricity, but we will also create the ecosystem for micro enterprise, which will give them employment. And you will hear that this is going to create an opportunity for doing irrigation in 100,000 acres of land, or 100,000 farmers can be impacted, 400,000 acres of land can be impacted. So it's a huge game changer in terms of its ability to service the people in the rural areas. Many of these solutions, we also feel, will also change the way the whole socioeconomic dimension in the village is there. With access of electricity, can we provide them digital education? Can we provide them digital banking? Can we provide them digital medical facilities? So energy today, or microgrid today, is becoming incidental in terms of the whole ecosystem that is being created over there. And it will, to that extent, change the game and change the access and empower the people, which has never been tried earlier. Also, we found that if we have to work in these areas, we need to understand the psyche of the people, whether they will pay for us. Most of the people will tell you from the discoms that you go to rural areas, no one will pay for you. I don't think it's a myth. SPI has tried, and we have tried. We run in Delhi the distribution. We run it in slums, and our collection efficiency in these slums is 98, 97%. So it's not that the poor people do not pay, but you need to empower them. You need to give them the opportunity whereby they can do certain economic activities and are in a position to pay for the consumptions of anything that they use as a service over there. So I think in all, this has been a business in which there has been huge amount of collaboration, there has been huge amount of partnership, and there has been huge amount of innovation that has gone into it. Each of these have a certain component where partners brought in those strengths, and we were about a year back ready with our proposal. But as a corporate, we always thought that we would be very happy if we can do maybe 100 villages or maybe 1,000 villages. My CFO is there and is smiling that where is the money to do this and how do you make it commercially? So at that time, Ashwin mentioned that 6th or 7th of October, we met him over there. Before that, I made a presentation to my group chairman, Chandra, and I told him, and he said, yeah, this looks to be a good idea, but you get people who can support this sort of investment. And we went and met Rockefeller Foundation about a year back, and since then, it has not been looking back. Every week, for 2-3 days, evening time, a whole lot of people work on making the business plan and making it financially viable. Because if we have to scale it up, if it has to be sustainable in the long run, then it has to be commercially viable. There's no way that this can be on a gratis or on a grant basis. And I think today we strongly believe that we have a business model which not only we can do it in India, not only we can do it 10,000. In fact, Raj and Chandra had a chat and they said, why not do it 50,000? So every time the target moves somewhere else, and I find it, come on, this is not the main business we are into, but I think Tata Power has always believed, in fact, the founder, Jamshedji Tata, when Tata Power was being set up, said that we want Tata Power to do clean, abundant, and affordable electricity. And I think for the first time, we'll be able to reach out to so many people in the country. 25 million people is a huge number. And not only provide them electricity, but also provide them the economic opportunity which they had been denied for many years. This has been a journey which has been possible because of many of my colleagues and partners who have worked. And I would like to thank many of them who are here in the audience. Professor Ignacio from MIT, Shashi, Hasna, Sanjay, Sharad, for the type of support that ITT has given to us. Ashwin, Ling is not here, but please convey her thanks to her. Jaideep, Samit, Umang, Utpan. So all of them have been great support for us in bringing this to fruition. Then I have my colleagues from Tata Power, Sumit, Sugata, they are at site today acquiring land for the new set of projects that we would be launching in next 1 month. Nilesh, Ganesh, Mithun, Iti, Manoj, Mani, Vijay, Arul, Ashish, Ramesh, and JV. So thank you all for making this happen. This is a collective dream of all of us put together. This is a dream of future of India. This is a dream for the people of India, because this can be a game changer. This is something which is truly going to bring about a paradigm shift of energy access, the universal energy access, and the removing of energy poverty, which has been in discussion for many years. So thank you very much for coming over here on behalf of Tata Power. I'm really grateful that in spite of the toxic air in Delhi, all of you are brave enough to come over here and celebrate in launching of this company. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Praveer. It's now my great pleasure to invite Dr. Raj Shah, our president of the Rockefeller Foundation, to come up and also say a few words from his perspective. I will just say that as someone who's worked in international development for several decades, Raj has always had a passion and a belief in the importance of power and energy access as a fundamental building block for addressing questions of development and poverty. You will often hear him say, if we want to end poverty, we must end energy poverty. And so his conviction and support for this effort and for the efforts of many of the others that we've been partnering with has been absolutely unstinting. So Raj, welcome to the stage to deliver your remarks.
Good evening. How are you? A little quiet out there after Praveer gave that incredible story of how awesome this partnership is. Literally an awesome partnership. That's a data science joke for those who care to appreciate it. I just want to start by extending my thanks first to Ashwin Dayal. I'll say we have inside the Rockefeller Foundation a management meeting every 2 weeks. It's a little bit of a big meeting, and it's quite structured. And Ashwin's first 2 words in every one of those meetings for the past year has started with Tata Power. And everyone then looks up and eagerly awaits news of what has transpired. And so, Ashwin, you now will go home and you'll get to say that it's launched. And that's a major, major accomplishment. Congratulations to you for your leadership and your commitment. I also want to recognize Dipali Khanna, who's here, who so many of you know and has been instrumental, and Jaydeep Mukherjee, and of course, Praveer, you and your extraordinary team. One other colleague, in case you don't know, is our health lead, is Dr. Naveen Rao, who's here. Naveen, can you put your hand up for a second, just to embarrass you? Naveen's right here. If you get a chance and work on health or anything related to it, of which energy is deeply related to it, or if you just need a prescription for something, he's your guy. I'll say that, this new partnership is so important and exciting for us. And it's very special to be in a room of so many friends and colleagues. Some of you I have just met outside. Others I've known or known of for many years. And I have followed your work through our Smart Power India affiliate. And so if you are here with Desi Power, Tara Urja, OMC, Husk Power, M. Linda, ITT, so many others, I know that these kinds of accomplishments are collaborations across teams, and we want to thank you for the extraordinary commitment you've made so far. And I want to preemptively thank you for the extra commitment you're going to make going forward to make sure these programs all work. Together, you have really demonstrated that it's possible to end energy poverty. Ashwin mentioned that I have had a lifelong commitment to addressing and ending energy poverty. That's unfortunately not true. I only really learned about the importance of electricity in the context of development and human development work. I'm a medical doctor by training, but unlike Naveen, not an active one. But after my first week on the job when I was in the Obama administration at USAID, I was put in charge of the response to the earthquake in Haiti. And we had to very quickly, in one moment, about 250,000 people had died in a tragic, tragic earthquake. And we mobilized a military and civilian response that at the time was the largest humanitarian response ever mounted. And I would go every few weeks and spend a couple of days visiting people we were trying to serve. And I met a mother and a young girl who told me about, I said, well, what's the most important thing that's happened here as part of the response? Because we were always trying to make it better. And I thought, it's the water. We worked so hard to get clean waters to prevent a diarrheal disease outbreak or health. We put a ocean liner called the USS Comfort, a huge ship with a big Red Cross on it, did 22,000 surgeries to reattach limbs that had been severed from children. It was extraordinary, and I thought I would hear about those efforts. And she told me it was when we reconnected the electricity in that small area and allowed the lights to go back on, because in the darkness, girls and women were being attacked and abused relentlessly, and they desperately needed that for their personal safety. It was in that moment I understood and then started to try to learn about the energy sector and why it's so important. And after that, whether it was in Afghanistan or Africa, Somalia, or right here in India, I have come to appreciate that you truly cannot end poverty, and you cannot bring justice and dignity to those who are vulnerable without extending electricity to them in an economically feasible and reliable manner. And so in this room the impact of the effort we're announcing tonight and the impact it'll have. But I do hope we'll play one short video just so you can see the types of impacts that are already happening here in India.
मेरा नाम है सावित्री देवी। मेरा जीविका सिलाई से चलता है। ठीक है। जब बिजली नहीं थी, फिर होता था हम लोग को, जैसे मशीन वगैरह हम लोग पैर से चलाते थे। इससे तो इनकम नहीं होता। लाइट नहीं रहने पर हमको बहुत दिक्कत। यहाँ हमारा ग्रिड का बिजली आया मेरा घर में। भैया लोग ही आके बताए कि इस तरह का मशीन को आप मशीन में यूज कीजिए। कि बाप रे, हम 1 घंटा 1.5 घंटा लगता था हमको थोड़ा थोड़ा ढुकुर ठुकुर सिलने में, वो हम 40 से 45 मिनट में आराम से सिल लिए। उसके बाद कम समय और कम जल्दी में हमको पैसा ज़्यादा होता है। बहुत खुश होता है मेरा मन में। जो सिलाई सिखाती हूँ, बच्ची लोग आती है, कुंवारी बच्ची जो मैट्रिक इंटर कर जाते हैं, उसके बाद मेरे पास सिलाई के लिए आते हैं। मुझे लगता है कि मेरा गांव भी आप तरक्की की राह पर चली आई है। अब पूरा गांव का महिला को एक धागा में बांधने के लिए जो काम नहीं होने वाला रहता है उससे भी हम लोग कर जाते हैं। लाइट का व्यवस्था नहीं था, तो अभी तो पूरा लाइट है।
It's what electricity can do. It has the power to make the impossible possible. In fact, we've seen across the roughly 200,000 people that Smart Power India serves, the small businesses that now get power through these mini-grids have seen an almost 50% increase in their revenue and in their income. And you can imagine that since many of these are women-headed enterprises, those economic gains are reinvested in the welfare of their children, in their nutrition, access to school, and efforts that lift up entire communities. That's why we're so proud today to be launching an enterprise that we believe will quickly become the world's largest microgrid developer and operator. It's why I get excited hearing Pravir tell the story of how this came together, because it illustrates that unlike most people who are not energy sector and power systems management sector experts, we are beginning to understand that this is as much an investment in technology, data science, and innovation as it is in simply providing access. Through data science and better analytics, we can manage grid systems from afar, reducing labor costs, reducing waste, loss, and theft, and enabling an economic model to reach hundreds of millions of people more viably. By investing in new energy storage technologies, we can literally invent, perhaps on the backbones of the electric vehicle revolution, a new way to make intermittent renewable power the world's most common, most safe, and most reliable power source. By investing in smart grid technologies and smart meters, we can solve problems that have existed for years and have resulted in so many of even India's discoms being mired in debt and poor service statistics. Together, we really can show the world what is possible when one of the world's most historic foundations and one of the world's most historic power companies. Tata Power is actually older than the Rockefeller Foundation. It was founded in 1911 with the vision that Pravir mentioned. And so we're thrilled to be engaging in this type of partnership. Today, 40 to 50% of enterprises in rural India still rely primarily on diesel power. If that's still true 5 years from now, we will simply not have succeeded. The reason I keep aspiring to set the target higher is not just to make Ashwin even more frantically upset with me. It is actually because sometimes I've found if you have an ambition that is huge, is transformational, like the desire to vaccinate every child on the planet, the desire to protect every woman from physical attack, or the desire to truly end energy poverty for the 840 million people around the world that live without access to electricity. You can engage partners that have the scale and capacity to actually solve that problem. Today, I look in this room and recognize Tata Power is one of those kinds of very, very, very rare partners that can bring the scale and capacity to actually solve energy poverty in India. And in doing so, we can together create 10,000 new green jobs. We can support 100,000 rural enterprises. We will deliver power-based irrigation to 400,000 local farmers and safe drinking water to all of the 5 million households this project seeks to serve and 25 million people living and residing in those households. On a global scale, this effort will reduce yearly carbon dioxide emissions by more than 1 million tons and reduce the amount of diesel burned by 57 million liters. That's enough diesel for about 3,000 cars to drive from Delhi to Mumbai every single day. Now, I've been here in Delhi for, feels like a little bit longer, but probably half a day, and I'm struck by the air quality. In fact, my wife and daughter are with me, and we've been wearing masks outside because it is striking. And, you know, put yourself, that's what we're doing here in New Delhi over these few days. But you all know if you put yourselves in the shoes of an impoverished family living in a rural community, they're often living with much, much worse toxic air pollution inside their house every day, the result of stoves and lamps burning dirty kerosene, having that be the only reliable way to gain energy and access to power to make their lives possible. This kind of a partnership has the ability to show that it's not just our task to fight poverty and to bring technology to that mission, but in doing so, we can also, as the Indian Solar Alliance has made abundantly clear, extend a hand so that so many millions of people can rise economically while also demonstrating a low-carbon pathway for development for tens and potentially hundreds of millions of people. And we all know that our planet needs that now more than ever. So congratulations to all of you involved in this extraordinary effort. The Rockefeller Foundation will be committed to this project whether we reach 25 million people or 250 million people. We will rely on each and every one of you to continue to innovate and continue to bring technology not just to those who benefit because they're wealthy and they can afford it, but also so that every single person has the ability to be safe, be secure, and be optimistic about their future. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. I would now like to invite Shri Upendra Tripathi to come up and say a few words. I think, as everyone in the room knows, Mr. Tripathi is the Director General of the International Solar Alliance that Raj just referenced. Prior to that, was a great champion of distributed energy and renewable energy as a leader within the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. And we're honored to have you with us today and would love to hear a few thoughts from you on this venture and how we can collaborate more effectively with the work that you're doing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, friends, for the invite. In fact, in one side you have power, and the other side you have foundation. That solves the problem. A very strong foundation and power around. I was studying in a small university called Carleton in Canada, and I had a professor called Gene Swimmer. Gene Swimmer used to teach us mostly on policy issues, and he once started with a small anecdote. I usually start with an anecdote or a question, but today it's an anecdote. It was very simple. The professor had told that one professor went to study the innovation in a particular country, and while going in the market, he found the name of a shop. It's called 50/50. So he went inside. He said, "What is this new brand, 50/50? He said, "Well, I have started a new type of meat, and I sell it in packages. It's a 50% chicken and 50% horse meat. It's a good mix. We have put more nutrients, vitamins, and all that. But the package name is 50/50. So the professor buys 1 kilo of this 50/50 meat, comes back, cooks, and eats, and he doesn't find much of chicken. It was mostly horse meat. So next day he goes. He says, "Look, gentlemen, you told me it is 50/50, but it is a hell of a lot of horse meat and no trace of chicken." So the shopkeeper said, "Sir, I never lie. I always tell the truth. I took 1 full horse, 1 full chicken. We mix it. Is it not 50/50? Well, when you talk about policy paradox, we have to understand in the age of mini grid, 1 grid, smart grid, it's all. I mean, you have different types of grids. We are talking about very progressive policy-making countries like Rwanda or Togo, when they don't want to take the traditional path of, competing to create grid in every place. They say, "Why don't you divide the country in the beginning, saying this half is no grid zone. We will all go through mini grids or microgrids. And this zone is for grid, so how much money you will save?" But I'm so happy that, Smart Grid India, Rockefeller Foundation, we, in fact, a few months back, we took some 45 ambassadors and high commissioners to Lucknow, from Lucknow by a bus, without a chemical toilet in the bus, to some 150 kilometers from there to Sitapur to show a mini grid which was working for the last 3 years. And it was so brilliant. You have an Indian company, Japanese money, French technology, in a distant Indian village. It was really, beauty of everything. We spent the whole day. And we found that the banks, the petrol bunks, the computers around, the shops, they're all operating with solar. And when we asked, why they were paying so much for mini-grid solar, it was quite costly. They said, "Look, it is reliable. We make our money. Even if we pay more, we don't mind," which essentially means there is a big market. With this, if we combine, this is a beautiful picture of an emerging, great country like India, where, you find things are changing. 36 million citizens or houses, they connected to the grid in the last 18 to 24 months. And I, in fact, come from a village in India, from the East Coast. And I do go to my village once in a year. And so much of change has taken place in the last 6-7 years. When LPG has come in, small LPG, which is not really environment friendly in that sense, and electricity, Out of 50 houses in my village earlier, only 7 houses had electricity connection. My village was electrified though. So the percentage would be how much? 14%. Today, all the 50 houses have connection, although the power may not be that reliable. But what has happened? Some fundamental changes have taken place. All the mountains around my village, and I tell you, my village doesn't have a bus stand. It has a good road now. The nearest railway station is 6 kilometers away, and the bus stop is 3 kilometers away. But so much change in those mountains. It's all green now, because nobody bothers to use firewood. Earlier, they used to cut the trees and take and use dry cow dung. Now those things are in the of the past. So, of course, there are other interesting things I won't have time to tell you. But the fundamental point that I'm trying to make is that once you look after the energy requirements, how in my village environment has improved. And I tell you, in my village, I never used to see a deer. Today you go daytime, you will find 30, 40, 50 of these groups moving all around. And people are very conscious, they don't kill them. So the wildlife has improved, the greenery has improved, and I must tell you what other changes have taken place. Because of the light, the students are reading better. All the children, I think, my time, I remember, you used to take a lantern, clean that dark glass, and get up, and my mother would say, look, sleep early, get up early, so that you use less kerosene. And today things are different. But the most beneficial thing that has happened in my village, usually every year, 1 or 2 people used to die of snake bite. Because night you have to go sometimes, and it's dangerous at night, but because now there are street lights, people can see the snake. And so it's not anymore a question of, just, getting better income. It's a question of life and death. And that is proven when, as a secretary to the Government of India in MNRE, I went to Sundarban Islands. And in one of those islands, I found the homemakers, the housewives, the women, had formed a self-help group. And they were running a small mini grid in that village. Same thing they told. Theft has come down, snake bites have come down, students are eating better. But what I found there in their wisdom was something which my scientists in the ministry had not been able to reply for almost a year. When I asked, can you grow something beneath the solar panels? Promptly would come the question, we should contact agricultural universities, give them money, and they would do some experiment like, all those empirical sciences, you do that. And this remote hamlet in Sundarbans, the women had just put the panels at a height of 6 feet, and beneath that, they were putting turmeric, quite a few tubers. I was so surprised that something I was searching to find out what can be done, they were doing that. And they had those batteries, How do you get distilled water to put into those lead-acid batteries? You have to take all the way to the island, where boat and ship. Oh no. What they had done, they had got a desiccator and a box with a glass, tilted, and put any water. Because of the sunlight, it evaporates, and the drops accumulate. They slowly come down in the inclined slope. And how do they collect? In a broken Coca-Cola bottle. And they used to pour to the lead-acid batteries. Now see the wisdom, see the genius that is coming in. That was about part of India. But in ISA, we are talking about bigger things. The International Solar Alliance, so 83 countries, we are very proud to say that have signed the agreement. Countries like Germany, Italy, Spain, they all would like to join today, but then some first amendment is yet to be ratified by 30 countries. 16 have done, 14 more have to do. But is it just another international organization? Because we think that there are, my director, Director of Finance, Jagjit is here, he always tells there are 3 types of matter: gas, liquid, and solid. So when you say solid matter, it means local organizations. They really have to work hard because they're very close to the people. If you don't work hard, you can't survive locally in the village panchayat, for example. Liquid is provincial, little up, but up, yes. But you're not as, responsive as the village or the decentralized local governments. And then you have the federal government. And, but when you talk international, it is really gaseous. You talk, you have workshops, you have all carbon-producing seminars, and more you meet, more you talk, less is the productivity. But then that itself is an end in itself. How often you have workshops, how often you meet, how often you talk, how often you produce things, and that's the, the type of thing. But we are trying to be different. For example, we asked our member countries, do you want to help your farmers? 22 countries came forward. They said, we would like to help X number of farmers. We put together, it came to 270,000 solar pumps they need. So we took help of EESL. In fact, the company which has put in some 310 million LED bulbs to get down the price from 400 rupees in Indian currency to 50 rupees of a 7-watt bulb. And we are trying whether this aggregation technology can actually bring down prices. Something concrete, something, we may not succeed, but that's not important. Important is that we are trying to be different. Well, just the World Bank report came, I think, a few months back. It says at the end of 2030, still in the world, there will be 700 million people without electricity. The ones we are talking about, who can have a snake bite without light. Not only that, there are 2 billion women who still don't have access to clean energy, and we are talking about a 21st century economy of $75 trillion. 100 years after, when they read history of the 21st century, they will say this is the time when there are 2 billion women without access to clean energy, there are some 700 million people without electricity at the end of 2030. And 2030 is a very significant year, because for the last 30 years, we have been promising that at the end of 2030, there will be no one without electricity, no one without access. But suddenly they found out that still there will be 700 million people. 700 million divided by 5, you have 140 million home lighting systems. If we can bring the industry and aggregate the demand for 140 million home lighting systems, with a 5-year warranty, I don't know why we can't just say that they can be getting light at the time in the evening they need. And I don't think aggregating a demand of 140 million home lighting systems through big companies like Philips, by Schneider Corporation, by GE, all these stalwarts can come together, take a roadmap, and we have so many multilateral development banks, so many rich economies. They always can put a pipeline of financial systems so that the industry can get up, produce more, reduce the price, and it's available. And to conclude, I must tell you the story. When I went to Djibouti and I met the Honorable President of Djibouti, he told me, look, solar is creating a problem here. And I said, Excellency, what type of problem solar is creating? He said, look, people are free, people are nomadic, people are just used. You stay, in the evening you decide where to stay, and night you take rest, morning you again go. You don't have to stay in a particular fixed house in a village. But once you have given this solar power, solar mini grids, people are getting attracted to the light. So villages are coming up. And more villages are coming up. They want higher capacity for these mini grids, and there is no money. And I must tell you, when I went to that village, I promised, look, I'll go back, and just $1 million, we will increase the capacity. We came, we wrote to 2-3 agencies, because we ourselves don't, give grants to create. But the Honorable Minister from Djibouti had come. I said, has there been a 1 megawatt increase in that mini grid nearby? He said, no, we have made slight marginal improvements. Incremental benefits have accrued. But no, there is no transformation in terms of giving mini grids. So my last point is, Smart Grid India, that impressed me, Disha, when you explained, when these ambassadors and high commissioners came, and they suggested, can Rockefeller and ISA come together and create a smart grid ISA, smart grid world? So where the need is most, like Djibouti, for example, can we go there? And there are many countries like Djibouti. In fact, I can give you the list of these countries where all these 700 million unfortunate people are still there. And they have no hope, because World Bank has said that even at the end of 2030, they will still remain in darkness. More and more people will be added. And so today I'm very happy. I came for this, that I could meet Raj. I had met him earlier also. And we can plan something called, Rockefeller ISA, smart grid for the world. We're not talking about the one grid that takes care of the entire thing. We're talking about really many grids. We're talking about small solar systems where in the 21st century we can proudly stand and tell that, look, by 2025, there'll be no citizen in the world who has no access to electricity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tripathi. I'm now delighted to welcome Shri Amitabh Kant, who's joined us for this evening to be with us on this occasion. I think he needs very little introduction. He's the CEO of Niti Aayog, the National Institute for Transforming India. Excuse me. He's also a very great innovator and writer who's written books such as Branding India, An Incredible Story a decade ago, more recently edited The Path Ahead, Transformative Ideas for India. So someone who is constantly thinking about innovative ways in which to get things done to move the country forward, whether it was in the sector of tourism, in electric vehicles, storage, and as Niti Aayog's CEO has been a great partner, not just in the area of energy and energy access, but also in other sectors such as health, education, etc. Mr. Kant, welcome, and we invite you up to the stage to make some remarks. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. This is a very, very unique event, and my very sincere apologies for being late. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the key tasks which the Prime Minister has laid before this country is to make it a $5 trillion economy by 2024. And this country is actually, if you look at the last 5 years, we've grown at an average of about 7.5%. If you go back in time, between 2005-6 till now, we've lifted about close to 300 million people above the poverty line. But the challenge of rapid growth and the challenge of providing electricity to all, one of the key tasks has been to extend electricity to every single village of India. We've been able to do that very effectively, except for a few far-flung, very, very far-flung villages. We've been able to do this with every single village of India. But the challenge is not about providing electricity connection to the villages, but to every single household of India. That is really the key challenge. And we in Niti Aayog run a program called the Aspirational Districts of India, which are the most difficult districts of India. And these are the most backward districts of India. We do this program in about 115 districts of India, and I've traveled to quite a large number of them. And these are extremely difficult villages of India. And my belief has been that providing electricity is really the key driver of growth. Actually, I've been a long-term believer that actually providing electricity and providing, broadband connectivity does more good to the growth of these areas rather than road connectivity. And therefore, one of the key things in these areas, if you look at it, and these are areas, if you look at the map of India, these are areas which have kept India backwards in many ways. They've not enabled India to grow at high rates of 9 to 10%. So if you are able to transform these villages, you would have actually on the map of India, these are areas which remain red, irrespective of the green in the southern, the western, and the northern part of India. And many of these are very far-flung villages where it's very difficult to provide connectivity. And therefore, my long-term belief has been that we really need to transform them and provide electricity to them. And if we are able to provide energy, it'll be the key ingredient which will drive economic activity, improve livelihoods, and will really, really challenge. These are simply because these are very, very challenging geographies. There'll be islands, some of them are remote villages, some of them are very, very difficult terrains. And it's so difficult that actually in one of the districts that we cover, children take about almost 4 hours to reach their school. They walk for 3.5 to 4 hours to reach their school and come back. I was in one of the districts, Nandurbar in Maharashtra, where the whole entire population actually is suffering from huge malnutrition. It's an area of great anemia. It's an area of great sickle cell disease. And therefore, if we are able to transform them, then you are really transforming the future of India. And this is not possible without energy. And many of these difficult areas have issues of access to power. Many of them have power, but they are all running it on very expensive diesel-based generation. And because of that, they are really polluting some of these very pristine areas as well. So bringing transformation and infrastructure to these terrains is really an expensive and a very, very challenging task. So I'm particularly delighted that we'll be able to provide affordable power to all, while at the same time provide a very climate-friendly solution like renewable microgrid. And therefore, this, to my mind, is a very, very unique partnership. A recent study by MNRE has shown that actually the potential of mini and microgrid is close to about 500 megawatt in this country. I'm also very delighted that Praveer Sinha, who's a very, very dynamic CEO of Tata Power, he's already actually implemented a demonstrated microgrid set up in a very, very far-off village, a riverine village in Vaishali district of Bihar, which is actually an island in river Ganga. So he's built up this experience before he started this. And the Rockefeller Foundation has set up more than 178 renewable microgrids, accumulating to about 6 megawatt of capacity. And many of them have been powering micro enterprises. So once you have these micro grid, what you will provide is really transforming lives of Indian citizens. You will be bringing in new micro enterprises in these areas. You will be giving a major thrust to education. You will be providing a huge thrust to health standards. Many of these areas which are actually impacted by not having proper electricity in the primary health centers will all have electricity. So imagine the transformation that will take place. And I personally think that these will create a whole vast number of new green jobs. They will energize rural enterprises. They will actually deliver irrigation to local farmers. They will supply clean drinking water to local communities. And more than anything else, they will lead to very sustainable and innovative development of India by reducing carbon dioxide emissions by almost 1 million tons. And therefore, none of these villages will have the problem which Delhi is confronted with today, this bad air quality. And therefore, this is a very innovative and a very sustainable way to progress in India. I am really taking this opportunity. I was held up somewhere else. I left that meeting and came here simply to congratulate the Rockefeller Foundation for a very, very unique partnership with a very dynamic company, Tata Power. And I personally wanted to come here because I think this partnership is essential for the people of India. It is essential in rural communities, and this will really give a thrust to a massive multiplier impact in India's economy, but more than that, it will have a huge impact in terms of moving India's social indices upward in some of the most difficult terrains of India and lead to sustainable development of India. So my congratulations to Tata Power and to Rockefeller Foundation, and we on behalf of Government of India, anything that is required, and I think they require a lot of support. They require a lot of support because while this is a collaborative, they're trying to create a business model out of microgrids. And what we need to do is really ensure from the state and the centers that they get a single window clearance for seeking all regulatory approvals, and all the right of way approvals are given to them quickly. We need to ensure that there is creation of local village committees to ensure that there is customer adaptation, there is payment collection, there's quick, fast dispute resolution, that there is a provision made by DISCOMs for grid connection to enable sale of microgrid power. These are massive challenges in India simply because the DISCOMs are not merely inefficient, but they create the biggest hurdle for the creation of microgrids. And therefore, our job will be really to ensure that we bypass, not merely bypass the DISCOMs, but ensure that these DISCOMs become catalysts for growth by assisting and supporting Tata Power and Rockefeller Foundation. We need to become the facilitators and catalysts. Left to these DISCOMs, nothing will happen. They need to go bust before microgrids in India can take off. And therefore, even if I don't say this, they are going bust. So we need to ensure that they become the facilitators, they become the catalyst for growth of microgrids in India. This is a very, very unique initiative. My heartiest congratulations.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kant, for what you said. And I think, with the commitment from your side, I'm sure that we're really going to be able to get all the ecosystem players together to really ensure that energy access is going to drive social and economic development in India. So thank you so much for your words. Let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Deepali Khanna. I'm the Managing Director for Asia with the Rockefeller Foundation. It's really a privilege for me to be here today because this is a very important moment for all of us. And I want to thank each one of you by taking your time to be here in spite of the air quality issues and to join us. And I also want to thank our online viewers who are with us. And I hope they're also feeling the energy of this room, which is definitely going to make things happen. So with that, I'd like to invite the panelists. I'm hoping that we're going to have a very vibrant conversation. So can I invite Ms. Reena Nanavati, Mr. Praveer Sinha, and Dr. Raj Shah. As our panelists are walking up, I'm going to take the time to introduce Reema Ben. I think most of you in the room know her. She is my role model, and I think she's a role model for many, many people in this room and millions of women who are not in this room. She's somebody who spent over 3 decades of her life to really ensure how women can really be So 3 decades of her life has been spent working in villages, doing everything possible to really ensure that they have the kind of livelihood so that they can really become the game changers within their own families. Seva is working, and she's working directly with about 17 million women across 13 different states in India, as well as working in the region. So whether it's Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Seva is now a household name, and we are so privileged, Reema Ben, to have you with us here today. I'm not going to introduce Raj and Mr. Sinha because everybody knows them. And in terms of this panel, the way we're going to conduct it is that I'm going to be posing some questions to each of the panelists and give them about 5 minutes to respond. For the audience, I think we are going to use the opportunity over dinner where you could ask each of the panelists your questions or seek clarifications. And our online viewers can definitely send us questions, which we will try to respond in due course. So with that, Reema Ben, maybe I should start with you. And you've been somebody who has provided the opportunity to women across India to have access to energy. You've been able to see the kind of impact that's created in the lives of these women, households, and communities. Let us know what kind of impact are you seeing? I mean, what does it feel like, and what's the change that you're seeing on the ground?
Thank you so much to everybody. I know that it's quite late in the evening and everybody is waiting for the lunch outside, but I won't lose this opportunity that's given to me to really bring you all to the reality of what we heard from Praveen ji or from Dr. Raj Shah or from Amitabh Kant. And these are the women that I'm going to bring their voices here today, are the ones who are selling vegetables on the streets, or are small farmers, or are salt miners working in the deserts who leave their homes for 9 months of the year and migrate and live in the deserts of Gujarat and in India and do salt mining. And you know, their tools are all old and worn out. They are scattered, and therefore, you know, they do not know where the raw material comes from, where the market for their products lie, and their productivity is very low. And therefore, our founder has always been telling that poverty is the worst form of violence, with the consent of the society. And no access to energy or exclusion of these women and their households out of energy further compounds and brings them back into the vicious circle of poverty and indebtedness. But as everybody has been showing us hope, I'm also going to share with you some of the experiences that we had, that when you work on energy inclusion, how it transforms the lives and livelihoods of these rural families. And I'm going to give you a few examples, and I know I have to stick to 5 minutes, but I think those few examples are of these women and their households. They all migrate and live in the desert for 9 months of the year. And they used to pump out brine, underground brine, to make salt. And they used the diesel-powered pump sets to do that. And as a result of that, 75% of their earnings would go away in getting the diesel oil for their pump sets. And at the end of the year, working so hard, they were only left with a meager income of 10,000 rupees per annum, which you can see, which is even less than 1,000 rupees a month. And as a result of that, these families were bonded laborers, and they had to rely only on traders and moneylenders to run their lives. And that's where we tumbled across the technology of renewable energy. And our members, these salt farmers, 35,000 of them whom we've organized, they had to buy solar pumps, which were costing over 100,000 rupees. And so we worked out an affordable financing mechanism. One thing I would really like to bring here, and as Praveerji was also saying, poor do not want charity. All they want is an enabling environment which would give them affordable access to finance and to energy. And now with 1 woman, 5 women, 10 women, today we have 3,000 women who borrow and they buy these pump sets. And for the last 4 years, they've been using these pump sets, have repaid back their loans. And so now they run these pumps with 0 diesel oil. So you could see that, you know, how much of carbon footprints that have been reduced as well. But these women are now buying 2nd pump and 3rd pump as well. And then I accidentally met with, you know, Ashwin and Deepali, and I just was learning about Smart Power India, and then I said, oh, gee, you know, these solar panels, they are all lying idle for 4 months of the year during monsoon, so how do I convert it into a solar park? And that's where Smart Power India partnered with us, and we are setting up the first ever poor women-owned, run and managed solar park. The land has been donated by these poor women themselves, and we've been able to get also, you know, the first capital has been put in by these women because now they don't have to buy diesel oil. So their net income from 10,000 has gone up to 45,000 rupees. And as a result of that, each of the women has contributed 10,000 rupees to get the 3 crore of the first startup capital that's needed. And that's where we are setting up. I also wanted to say that how it really leads to livelihood generation, how it completely changes the whole setting in the the young girls who have been, gone to school up to 10th class or 12th class, they all under NSDC's skilling program got trained into how do you do the operation and maintenance of the solar pumps, how do you do the repairs, and also, it's a desert, there's surplus of energy, so they brought storage batteries, and now they run mini schools in the deserts for the children. They also have a theater which is set up in the desert, and that's how they are bringing up life to their life, otherwise, which was a very dry and a dull life. You're living in the open under the sun, and at night there's nothing. So now they have a mini school. So children who were devoid of education, the government has helped us with providing with teachers. So the teachers come, and the children now are going back to schools in the desert. And there's also a little theater, and we are now trying to bring a mobile health van as well. So I think this is what one could look. But I would also like to say that, one woman and another woman can share the risk. And, hundreds and thousands of women could also share the risks. But when the risk grows bigger, I think they need partnerships of, foundations like Rockefeller and Tata Power, because the risks also become bigger and bigger. So that's where I think the real partnership in sharing of risks has to happen as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Reema Ben. I'll turn over to Praveen now. So Praveen, you're going to be building 10,000 microgrids, and that is going to be significant. It is going to really bring about a dent in addressing the energy access issue, not only in India, but globally. So what's your plan to scale? How are you going to make that happen?
I think this is a long shot for us. We are starting small. We are looking at doing 200 in next 6 months. And what we are trying to do is learn how to scale this. How do we, first of all, make them financially viable, commercially viable, and then scale it up. But the ecosystem that we are creating over here is not just, energy is just an enabler. The ecosystem is for creating micro-enterprise and creating an economic model whereby the local people are able to generate revenue, generate money for themselves. So the entrepreneurship, the cooperative formation, those are the main challenges. Those are the main issues that we need to address. Each village is different. It is not that you cut paste from one village to another village. And I think this will require a lot of hard work at the ground level. It will also require a lot of support from the government, from the regulatory bodies who controls such businesses. And we are quite excited about it. We've tried and tested many of these solutions. And we feel that we'll be in a position to offer a very, very attractive solution to the consumers. At the end of the day, we feel that once we have reached 10,000 over a period of next 5 to 6 years, there will be opportunities to scale it up not only in India, but scale up the experiences and the understanding and the nuances which is there in other parts of the world. I'm sure Rockefeller looks at doing many of these initiatives internationally. For Tata Power, it will be something new. We are not there. We don't have footprints internationally, and we'll have to understand. But I think this is a more of a local development, and you need to have local partners who understand the local psyche of the people and what their expectation and aspirations are there. So it's an empowering program. It's a program which has to be run along with the people in the communities over there, and only then it will become successful. So the technology will come, the equipment will come, but it's the local people who have to take it, absorb it, and make it inclusive in terms of the growth.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Raj, I'll turn to you. This is a significant commitment that the Rockefeller Foundation is making in a new enterprise. What is your vision of success? So that's part one of the question. The second part is, what are the implications for your dream, which is now a reality, of ending energy poverty? How will this play out?
Well, I think you've seen many of the ingredients tonight that I believe you need to be successful. I thought Amitabh Kant's presentation was very powerful because at the end of the day, you do need government to be a partner and to understand the aspiration here and what it can mean and to facilitate it, and his public commitment to do so, I think, is quite helpful in that regard. A partner like Tata Power and everything Pravir has described will enable scale, access to capital, technology, customer service mindset. The fact that the new CEO of this effort has a customer-focused background, I think speaks to the commitment that Tata has towards this enterprise and understands where the priorities need to be. And I think Rima's points are very important because at the end of the day, Rockefeller has a sort of significant long-term and unlimited, in many respects, commitment. Everything is always limited, but an unlimited commitment in the sense that we will do whatever it takes, we'll learn along the way for you and your partners to be successful, and we will do our best to be a long-term partner. We can do that because of what Rima said. We can do that because we believe this can lift people up, lift up the women you were describing, and so long as we can facilitate those connections and be sure that we're having that kind of human impact, we can be a long-term partner that helps to make this successful as well.
Thank you so much, Raj. So in the interest of time, I'm going to fast track. And for a moment, let's think we're in 2026. We have Manoj Gupta, the CEO of TP Renewable Microgrid with us. And when he looks back to today, what is the one thing, or in a minute, what can you say? Either you can say, what are the two actions that you want him definitely to be taking so that when he looks back, he says, this is what I heard from the panel and this is what I did. Or you can say, what is the commitment you're going to be making now, which will help him succeed? We've heard from Amitabh Kant, the strong endorsement from the government. So Manoj, you're really good in a good place now with the government side, but we have other players on the panel now, and we really want to hear from them what advice they have or what commitment they'd like to make to you. So we can start with Pravir.
I in any case, give him very stiff commitments that he needs to meet. But I think I would love to hear from Rima and Raj about this.
I'm going to cede my time to Rima on this as well because I think, aside from everything we've learned, we've talked about today, measuring, knowing that we're actually helping the 25 million people we're making the commitment to is what counts at the end of the day. And SEWA has done that perhaps better than any other NGO in India.
I'm not going to be shy and will make the best use of the time I get and telling directly to the CEO who I would have hard time getting access to. And that is that, and Dr. Raj was asking me that whenever you see in any energy meeting, there are very few women. And you need to keep that in mind, that, eventually you need to not only see women as the users of the power that you are generating, but how do you make the women the owners and managers also of the power? And that's where I think partnerships will play a role, and partnerships with community-based organizations that really work on membership-based, and how do you build the capacity so that it sustains over a period of time. We don't want that the grids continue to work, mini grids, till, the hand-holding happens, and once the hand-holding stops, the grids also collapse and the villages return back to where they were. So unless and until we build the capacities and involve and increase the ownership and participation, and that's what I think the real challenge is going to be. And that's where you need to look for partnerships outside of technical organizations. That's a whole new area of managing people and managing communities. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll reassemble in 2026 and see what Manoj has done with that. Before we close, I want to share a small AV, which is really Manoj's vision for the future for the TP Renewable Microgrid. So can we have the AV? So I want to thank all the online viewers. I want to thank the panelists. And most importantly, I would like some of our partners to come on stage who worked relentlessly to have this partnership at a place where it is today. So can I invite Shashi from ITT, Jaideep from SPI, Professor Ignacio from MIT, and Ashwin. Please do join us for a group photograph. And we look forward to all of you having stimulating conversations over dinner, and we'd all like to be part of those conversations. So thank you so much. Do stay back. There are more drinks and dinner just outside. Thank you, guys. Thank you.